structure table type.
Okay, so yeah, right. So we'll do one thing. We'll create a program, right, based on for all entries concept, where we have implemented multiple select statements by passing internal table data as input to the next level item level data. That's what we are doing, right, in for all entries. We are passing internal table data as input to the select statement by using for all entry statement, so that we can select all the records which are available in the, which we can select the corresponding data for all the records available in the internal table, right? Now, to achieve this using function modules concept, to modularize that program, what we need to do? We need to pass header level internal table data as input to the item level internal table, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Here, we'll do one thing. We'll create a program and we'll create function modules to select the header level data. We'll create a separate function module to select the item level data. We'll create a separate function module to select the material related data. Like that, we'll create a separate function module for each data selection. Now, whatever the output returned by the first function module, that is header level data, it should be the input for which function module?
Next level item data.
Item level function module, right? Then whatever the data we selected in the item level function module, that should be the input for next level data selection. That means material data selection. Right. Now, your function module should be able to accept internal table as input. How can you pass internal table as input to the function module? You're already familiar with that concept. How can you pass internal table data as input to the function module? How to return internal table data as output?
Using tables,
Table type of
Using
tables in
tables,
function
that
module.
is right, but tables are obsolete, right? Tables parameter is obsolete, right? Outdated. Then what is the
Yes.
alternative we are using?
structure
Table type.
table type.
We are
Data
using
dictionary
table type.
type structure.
We created a
Mm.
structure with required fields, whatever the data we are returning the output, and we created a table type on top of that structure, so that we are using table type in the exporting parameter type, so that we were able to return sales order data as output, right, in the internal table format. Similarly, how can you pass internal table data as input to the function module?
And importing.
Importing we are using table type.
Yes, simple. Create a structure with required internal table format with all the fields. Create a data dictionary structure in SC11 and create a table type for that structure, and use the table type structure in the importing parameter declaration. Okay, I've already shown you yesterday, so that it can accept internal table data as input. Only thing you need to make sure, whatever the declaration you did in the function module level, the same type you should use in the program. Okay, you need to make sure you are using same type of internal table in the program which you have defined in the importing parameter. The fields order should be same, field name should be same, right, and data types and length should be same. Okay, clear?
Yes, sir.
You have any program available on for all entries, so that we'll modularize that program using? Looks like no program available. Let's quickly create a program on for all entries, so that you can recap the for all entries concept. create a program. Provide the type of the program, that is executable program. Design the selection screen. Begin of block. Assign the name B1 with title and frame. Text 01. I'll create the text later. Selection screen. End of block B1. So here we'll define one parameter. As I told you, we'll see one more example on using select options, which we can pass to the function module. Okay, because we cannot directly pass select options to the function module as an input. We can pass parameter just by defining with reference to the data element in importing parameter. We can pass internal table. You are already aware of that, how to pass internal table data as input. You need to create a table type and you need to pass the internal table, or the other outdated option available is tables parameter. You can
Tables,
also
yes.
use that parameter, but it is not recommended. And to pass the select options as input, we need to use a concept called range tables. Okay, range tables concept. Range tables structure is also similar to select option structure. It also contains sign, option, low and high, but the concept is slightly different. Okay, we'll see that concept when we are working on object oriented class methods together. Okay, so for now just use parameter p and what type of data we want to select. Let's select some sales data so that we can reuse the customer function module, customer validation function module. What is the KUNNR, I think. Okay, let's assume customer number is my input. Initialization. What is the next event?
At selection screen.
At selection screen. For validation, you know the difference, right? At selection screen and at selection screen on field. It's very important interview question. Now, to validate the customer, I don't want to create my own logic again, because I know that there is one existing functionality available to validate the customer. So I'm just going to call that function module instead of writing or instead of implementing the logic again. So pattern we use to call the function module. Not only function modules, we can also call class methods, which comes under object oriented ABAP. Looks like the server is slow. So what are the rules or prerequisites to use for all entries? I told you, right? It's a very important interview question. What are the prerequisites to
Header,
use for all entries?
headers, header table should not be empty.
Right?
The internal table should be
Header
in sorted
Sorted
order.
order, yes. And
It won't accept duplicates.
no duplicates allowed. Right?
Uh, the common field should not be empty.
Right. Whatever the common field we are using in the where condition, that should not have empty values in the internal table. We should also
Yes.
delete those empty values. Okay. Now, what if you don't follow this and use the for all entry
It
statement?
ignores where condition and select all the records from the table.
Yes. So it ignores the where condition. It ignores the for all entries and consider it as selecting all the records from the table. Okay. So it will cause performance issues. That is the reason why we use for all entries. Okay. Most people answer like everyone will answer this. like the prerequisites to use for all entries, everyone will answer. In the most cases, what will happen? The interviewer ask the candidate. So what if you don't follow these rules? What will happen? So most people don't understand that. So why we should use for all entries? There are rules we should use, but why we should use? Because if we don't use the select statement, the next level item level select statement will ignore the where condition and select all the records. Okay. Now I'm calling the existing customer ID validation function module. So before calling this, you can check this function module in SC37, test it once whether it is working properly, then only call it in your program. Okay. Don't call it directly. First open the function module in SC37. Check the function module whether it is working properly or not. Try to provide any simple input and check the output. Make sure it is what you need to make sure before calling the function modules.
Data types should be same in
Yeah,
function module and
that is after
program.
calling when you are passing
Oh.
the parameters. But before calling, you need to make sure
To test the
function module is
function working or not.
released.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so make sure
Yeah.
function module is released. Most of the time standard function modules, please remember whenever you are calling some standard function module, so make sure that function module is released. Okay, if it is not released and there is only that alternative available for your functionality, what you need to do, ask your seniors in the team what is the approach they are following for the function modules without released status. Okay, there might be some process, right? So you can implement once they are okay with your approach. Okay, anyway, if you call it sometimes when the code review happen, they might check, right? Otherwise if there is no code review, no one is going to catch it. That's why you need to make sure you're always using function modules with released status. Okay, but in special cases you will call it, but with proper approvals from your lead or manager. Okay, so why we cannot call, and looks like I'm not sharing the screen. Let me share. So why we cannot use or call the unreleased function modules? Because SAP won't
If they,
support. If there is any issue in that functionality, right? SAP is not going to provide any support. Usually, if there is any issue in the standard programs, right? You can raise an incident for SAP company, so that they'll check it and they'll fix it. It's their responsibility because it's their product, right? They sell their product to the customer. So if there is any issue in the standard functionality, so customer can raise a request or support request, so that SAP should analyze that issue and fix that issue. Okay, but in case of unreleased function modules, right, SAP won't take responsibility of fixing those if there is any issue with the unreleased function modules. Okay, if it is a released function module, it is SAP's responsibility to check it and fix it. Okay, so proper approvals is necessary before going to use function modules with unreleased status. It is taking too much time to call this function module. Let me terminate. Okay, I think I need to create it again. Selection screen. with frame. I'm not going to use title just to save some time. End of block B1. Define a parameter. Use relevant data element. Sometimes, right, data element name might be different. It might be using for some structure name. This name can be using by some structure name. So in this case, so you cannot define it as a parameter. So that's why make sure the correct data element name in the table. Initialization event to pass the default selection screen input. Let selection screen on to validate a specific field and make it available or make it enable if there is any error, and disable the rest of the selection screen inputs. That's why we use at selection screen on event. Now to validate the customer, we'll use the existing functionality, that is validate customer. We have already created this function module for other program, so we'll just reuse it. What you need to make sure, whatever the parameter you have defined for customer should be same type which is defined in the function module, okay, which is referring to the same type and length. Return the output. For the output, what you need to do, you need to define one variable, right, to capture the output. How do you know like what type of parameter, what type of variable you need to define? Go to function module, double click, go to export. What is the type here? We are using some
Character.
character 10. Use same type in your program to define that variable. Data output type. It won't accept inline declarations in function modules. That's why we need to declare separately. LV output, pass the output. Exceptions, will handle the exceptions using sub-RC value, right? Not equal to 0. Sorry, if it is equal to 0 means no exception, and LV underscore output. What is the validation we are doing? What is the value we are returning? Go to the function module. So if the customer is valid, we are returning X. If the customer is invalid, what are we returning?
Blank.
Blank, right? That's why. So I'm before going to raise any error message, right, I'm checking the value of LV output or exporting parameter using AND, right? I'm using AND to add one more condition in the if statement. If there is no exceptions, that means sub-RC should be 0 and LV output should be space to raise error. Space means customer is not valid. If LV underscore output, how can you write? Is initial. If it is empty, that means customer is invalid. There is another way. What is the value we are passing in the function module? X, right? X means abap underscore true. You can use this variable, system variable. Abap true, abap false. Abap true means X. Abap false means blank. Okay, you don't need to use hard coded values. You don't need to use X. Okay, you can simply use a abap true instead of X, right? Instead of this value, you can use a what abap true. It will automatically populate X. Okay, in the function module also you can replace that X with abap true. But here what we need to check, true or false, abap true or abap false, to before raising the error message. Abap false means empty. It is empty, the value is abap false. Or simply you can also use like this with blank single quotes, R is initial. Okay, but if you want to check X equal to abap true or abap false. Abap false means blank. Abap true means there is X value. Okay, mostly we use this for flags. If it is false, then what we need to do? Message enter valid customer. Okay, type E. Clear? So I'm just reusing the existing function module for validation. Start of selection to write our business logic. Here, select first. We'll write
Sir,
the
size about
yes size of
not
RC.
equal to 0.
See, what are we checking here? There is no exception, means function module is executed properly without any issue. But the output is blank, right? See, the validation is successful. That's why I'm checking sub RC 0. The validation function module is successfully executed without any exception, and we were
Okay,
able to
okay.
find customer is invalid.
Invalid.
We were able to find it's an invalid customer because the function module is successfully executed, right? If the function module is not successful, if there is any exception, that means there is some issue in the input itself. So the function module functionality did not execute properly, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So sub RC 0 means the function module successfully executed without any exception. Output is false means the customer is invalid. To handle the exceptions, you can use another else if sy hyphen sub RC equal to 1. Then raise the relevant error. Message no input entered. Type E. Right?
If successful, why do we use error message?
Where are we using?
Like if size sub RC equals 0,
Ah,
next will
what do you mean by size sub RC 0? No exceptions in the function module.
yes.
And what is this condition? What are we returning? If customer is valid, we are returning X, right? In LV output.
Mm.
If customer is invalid, we are returning blank. So why we are raising error? If function module is successfully executed and
Mm-hmm.
customer is invalid, customer is not a
Invalid.
valid customer. Okay,
Okay,
so
okay.
that's why we are raising the error message.
Okay,
Exceptions,
okay,
there is no
understood.
exception means the output is the customer is not valid, right? Customer is valid, right? If there is no exceptions means customer might be valid or invalid. Exceptions are not going to
Invalid.
decide that, right? Whatever the exporting parameter we are returning, that will decide whether that is a valid customer or not. What is the use of exceptions? If there is any internal error in the function module, so we raise a exception. Okay,
Okay, sir.
that's not to return the output. Exceptions are not meant to return the output, but to raise any errors inside the function module. Okay, to make sure the function module is successfully executed or not. Okay, let's
Yeah,
say
okay, sir.
let's say there is an exception raised. For example, you did not pass the input. Okay, so it will raise a exception. Sub RC equal to 1. In that case, what would be the LV output value?
No input enter.
Thanks, sir. I think.
Blank.
Blank.
It will be blank.
Blank.
If you don't check sub RC, if you don't check for the exception and check only input, then what will happen? The function module even did not executed that functionality to determine whether it is a valid customer or not because of the wrong input, because you did not pass any input. So it raised the exception. If you don't check the sub RC and check only this output value, what will happen? It will be always blank because the functionality itself did not execute, right? It will give invalid validation, right? If you check only output, because it will always false. but sub RC is 1. It is raising the exception and it is not populating any value to output. So that's why you need to consider exceptions to make sure the function module execution is successful. Then only you can rely on your output, whether that is a valid output or not. Okay, clear?
Clear, sir.
Now we are using sub RC check to determine whether the function module call is success or not. If there is any exception, sub RC will be 1. Let's test it so that you will get clear idea on this. So I know I'm taking too much time on this, but everyone should understand why we use these exceptions, why we use function modules, so that it will easy for you to follow object oriented class methods concept. Looks like the server is slow today. Okay, the program is active now. Let me keep a breakpoint here. Execute. Now this time I'll enter valid input 2070. I think it's a valid customer. Execute. It's triggering the debugger. Now what will happen if you press F5? What will happen if you press F6?
SF step by step, sir.
Step by step means what it will execute. If you press F5, what will happen in this scenario?
It will go to function module
Yeah, it
source
will go
code.
to the function module and we can execute each and every statement of the function module source code. If you press F6,
Then also same. Oh,
no,
no. It executes
It
entire
will
function
complete
module.
yeah, it
function.
executes entire function module in a single step. Okay,
Yeah.
F7.
Returning from the function.
Return back to function.
Function
Now
module call.
observe where is the controller now at line number
No.
Main
17
program.
in the main
Main
program.
program.
Now if you press F7, what will happen?
Nothing.
Since you are already there in main program, it will
Main
complete the
program.
execution. It will complete the execution. Okay, it will complete the program execution. Now in this scenario, F7 and F8 are same. If you press F8, it will complete the program execution. Even if you press F7, it will complete the program execution because you are already there in the main program.
Main
When
program.
there will be an impact of F7, for example, if I press F7, F5, now F7 is helpful. If you press F7, it will return to the
It will return to the
main
program.
program. If you press F8, it will complete the function module and the entire program execution. Okay,
Direct execution.
now it will make the difference when you are inside any modularization units like subroutines, function modules, class methods. You press F7, it will take you to the main calling program. Okay, not only calling program, but if you are calling one function module within another function module, you can come back to the previous call or previous function module. Now I'm passing valid input. I'm passing a input. That's why no exception is raised. No exception is raised. Select statement is successful. That's why what is the value we are passing to the exporting parameter? X. What is the alternative for this? X. You can also pass abap underscore true. Okay. If I press F7, it will take me to the calling program. F7. Now we are in calling program. What is the sub RC? 0. What is the
0.
LV output? X. That means is it going to trigger this error message?
No.
No,
No, sir.
because this is a false condition in this case. Sub RC equal to 0, that is true, and we are using and, right? This should be also true to execute this corresponding logic or error message. Both statements should be successful or both statements should be true. But LV underscore output is not abap false. It is abap underscore true. That's why this condition is failed. Sub RC equal to 1. That's why this is also not going to execute. Right? Now, let's try a invalid scenario. Let me enter some random name. Now I am just pressing F6. What is the sub RC?
0, sir.
0.
So,
What is the LV output?
false. No
False.
output.
Why?
Blank.
Because it's an invalid customer. The select statement should be failed. I'll go back to the function module execution. Go back to the previous statement to debug it again. Right click here and go to statement. You can debug one more time. F5. Customer is there. We don't know that is valid customer or invalid, but there is a input. That's why exception is not raised. Select statement. What is the sub RC?
4.
4, because it's not a valid customer. This is not available in KNA1 table. That's why we are not setting anything. Exporting parameter is blank. Right? Sub RC is 0. In this case, sub RC is 0, but LV output is blank. That's why we are raising error message. Enter valid customer. Now, let's try other scenario. I'm not entering any input. Input is blank. Parameter is blank, and I'm passing the same parameter to function module. That means I'm not passing any input. It's blank. What will happen now? F5.
It will pop up a message, no input entered.
Importing parameter is empty. In that case, we are raising a exception. Right? What is the expectation after raising the exception? It will terminate the function module execution. So select statement is not going to execute. So it's not going to determine whether it is a valid customer or not because there is no input. Function module is terminated and return back to the calling program. It did not execute the select single statement to determine whether that is a valid customer or not. So that is not happened. Validation is not happened. Now check sub RC. What is a sub RC?
1.
1. What is the LV output?
Blank.
Blank. If you don't consider sub RC and if you are not raising the exception, let's assume you are not raising an exception if there is a blank input and you are not using sub RC check in the program, right, to validate or to handle the exceptions. What will happen? LV output will be always blank. The program will consider it as a invalid customer, right? If you are not handling sub RC check like exceptions, like every time the program assume function module returned blank LV output value, that means customer is invalid. But the validation happened. Did we validate the input? In this case, did we validate the customer in the check table? No, right? That functionality is not executed. So that's why we use exceptions to. That's why we use sub RC check. Okay, to avoid those scenarios. If you don't use sub RC, it will always consider that customer as an invalid customer, even though you don't pass any input. Right? Now sub RC equal to 1. Now is it going to work? Is this validation is going to work even though the customer is blank? No. Right? We'll raise another error message. No input entered. Clear? Everyone? Is everyone clear on this? Is everyone clear on this?
Yes, sir.
Now what is the next step? Select
Select
data from EKKO. I'll explain this. You have to create rest of the. I'll explain how to create. Here we need a data selection logic for EKKO. Input is which one?
customer.
Customer. Sorry. What is the data we are selecting? Sales order, right? VBAK. Okay. Input is customer. For this, you have to create a function module. What is the input for function module? Customer ID should be the
Customer
input for the function module. Output, what should be the output?
Customer status.
Sales order.
state
Sir.
So say
Sales order.
header
Sales
data.
order header data. Select any few fields. Okay. Select any few fields including the primary key fields. For this, what you need to do? Create a structure with the
Structure
required fields
required field.
and use that structure to define the exporting parameter using table type. Okay. Now you got one internal table output here. What is the second step? What is the second step?
Data from item level.
Create to select
Wait permission.
VBAP. What is the input?
Customer ID.
Customers. Sales order.
Sales order header data. Header
Don't
table is
confuse. Our input for item level data is sales order header data,
sorry
which we
header
returned
data.
here. We are returning in the
Yes, sir.
exporting parameter, right?
Yes.
This should be the input for sales order item level data. Okay. Whatever the output, we got here in the step 1 should be the input for item level data.
Yep.
Here what you need to define
Importing
for function module. Importing is
sales order header data with the required fields.
sales order header data internal table. And output is
Sales order item level data.
Sales order.
for this what you need to do?
Create
Create structure with the required fields.
a structure with the required fields.
Whatever the fields you want to select from VBAP table. Okay. Step 3. If you want to select next level data like material text or material related properties, create one more function module to select the material data. Okay. For example, you want to select material text. Input. What should be the importing parameter? What should be
Item
the
data.
importing parameter here?
Item level.
Item level data. Sales order.
Internal table as input. And what is the output?
Material text
Text.
data.
We're returning that as output. For this, what you need to do?
Create a structure with a
And make edit fields.
Selected fields.
Hmm.
Make edit
Table type.
table.
Here
Table.
also you need to create table type
table
because
type.
you are returning internal table type data, right? Not only single data.
Create
Okay. Now, what is the fourth step? Let's assume we have selected all. For each step, you need to create one separate function module. Okay. What is the next step? We have selected the data. What is the next step?
And display the data. End of
How
selection.
can you display? Which data you are going to display? We have header level data in one internal table output, item level data in different internal table output, material text in a different internal table. We have three different internal tables here, three different outputs from three different function modules. Which data you are going to display? You forgot
MAKT.
you forgot
make it
the important concept.
Matching internal table in
looping,
final
looping.
table.
We did it in the for all entries, right?
Yes,
Yes.
We
looping.
merged the internal table data into final
Final
output.
one.
Okay. We need to do it here. For this, create one separate function module. Create one separate function module to merge multiple internal tables data into one final
Final
output.
input.
Now tell me what is the input here? What is the input for this function module? Header data, item data, and material data, internal tables. You need to pass all these three internal tables, right, to merge to the function module. By using these three internal tables data, you need to write a logic to merge the data into one final output inside the function module. So that's why you need to pass all these three parameters, all these three internal tables as input to this function module. Do you need to define any new data dictionary structure? Do you need to create any new data dictionary structures for this new function module? Is it required to create any new data dictionary structures or table types to pass header data, item data, and material data as input?
No, not required.
Not required. Whatever the exporting you are using, what is the type you are using for exporting for sales order
Yes.
header, that you are going to use it as import here. Whatever the table type you are using in exporting parameter of item level data, you are going to use the same table type reference for item data. Similarly for material, whatever the table type you are using for material text, you are going to use same table type in the importing parameter. What is a new one here? What is a new thing here? We need to return the output, right?
Yes.
What is the
So,
output?
Material text data.
What is the output of this function
Come.
module? The final
Sales order
output.
corresponding
We
data.
merged
Okay.
by merging all these three internal tables, header data and item level data. We are going to generate one final output. It contains all the sales order header item and corresponding material data, right? A
you
final
have to
output
merge
which is the combination of fields from all these three internal
all
tables.
these three fields.
Okay. Now, what should be the exporting parameter here? Create
Uh,
DDIC structure with
with all
fields of
header item and material.
structures. That doesn't mean that you need to take all the fields of each internal table. You can take whatever the fields you wanted to keep in the final output. Okay, you don't need to take all the fields available in header data. You don't need to keep all the fields available or all the fields you have selected in the item level data, right? Whatever the fields you want to keep in the output, only create this final data dictionary structure with only those fields. Okay, and a table type to return the internal table data as output. If I'm just writing some simple syntax, don't take it as it is. If LT output or LT final is not initial, then what we need to do? Display the output using some DCL demo or ALV reports or whatever. Okay, is everyone clear what you need to do?
Yes, sir.
So how many function modules you need to create? One for header, one for item, one for material text, and the fourth
One
function
for
module to merge header,
merge all the
item and material.
yes, sir. Four
If you have
function
more
modules, sir.
data,
One more
if
table,
you have
one more
deliveries data, select another function module to select the delivery data by using sales order item data as input. Okay, clear?
yes, sir.
So create this program. And provide the program name. Okay, so that you will get a very clear idea how to use function modules in the program. Okay, is not required. One simple join is enough, right? For all this functionality, we don't need to write 4 different functionalities. One single function module with a join is enough, right? That's what we did in the previous program, right? But why we are creating this using for all entries? So that you can understand how to define different importing parameters, how to define different exporting parameters, how to make use of one function module output as input to the different function module. You can understand these scenarios. So that's why we are using this example. Okay, everyone clear?
Yes, sir.
So if you complete this today, from tomorrow onwards, we are going to work on ALV reports. Okay, data selection, validations, selection screen, everything is same in ALV reports. Only change is how we display the output. Okay, that is the only difference. The rest of the functionality is same. Data selections, joins, for all entries, everything is same. Only how we display, how we present the data in output screen, that we are going to work on. How ALV reports display the data in a better way. Okay, is everyone clear?